Hello. Welcome to another thrilling installment of the Isolated Leary Society presents Jane Austen's Persuasion. I suspect the penultimate episode.
Do you
Highly.
suspect that too, Pepper?
What do you think, Pepper? He's over there. He might come join us later. We'll see.
He's just chill.
Hello, Michelle. Hello, Tila. Glad you guys made it. Michelle, I hope you are okay. I'm sorry to hear about your spider run-in.
Oh.
She said a spider landed her while gardening, currently using internet to identify. So hopefully nothing scary. All right. Let's see here. Yes. So Mrs. Smith just dropped a number of bombshells on Anne about Mr. Elliot's history and personality, and apparently it was a cat face spider. Is that the real name of a spider? I have never heard of that. Sounds very cute, though.
Pepper appalled that a spider would be named after
Yeah.
a cat.
How dare?
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, so yeah, Mr. Elliot's a jerk. He's a total Wickham, as we suspected. At least as I suspected. And Anne. Throw in with Anne, who was
He's
also
worse than Wickham. We decided that yesterday.
Yes, actually, we decided he's worse than Wickham.
He's worse than Wickham.
Wickham's
We're
a bit
not
of a
sure if
opportunist.
he's worse than Willoughby.
Yeah. I can't comment because I don't remember Willoughby's character that well. But this guy is not Wickham was more of an opportunist. This guy is conniving.
Yes.
Hold on.
Calculating.
Someone is calling me who doesn't normally call me, so I'm just going to let them know I'm streaming.
Oh, okay.
Just in case it's an emergency. Hello. Hey, I'm in the middle of a live stream. I just wanted to answer in case it was an emergency or something. Okay, good. I'll be done around 7:30. Okay, cool. Talk to you later. Bye. You never know. I don't know. Maybe I have I'm overly concerned about phone calls being emergencies.
No?
I guess if the person tries to call you and doesn't get through, the next thing they're going to do is send you a text. And if it's an emergency, they will say, please call or something like that.
Right,
Yeah. I had to train my mom not to text, please call. She was just being like, politely asking me to call her at some point.
Right, yeah, but
she needed to be taught that
it sounds really
just the words "please call" were very scary. Anyway, so Mr. Elliot is concerned that Mrs. Clay is trying to get all up in Sir Walter's business, and so he wants to try to marry Anne to secure his becoming Sir William,
just kind of like, just kind of securing his place because he's already the heir. But I guess,
if Sir Walter married Mrs. Clay and she had a child,
that's true.
Which is like, it's a lot of ifs. If they got married, if she had a child, the child was male and survived, then that child could oust him. Yeah. But anyway, I guess that's
he feels like marrying one of the existing daughters would be a way to, I don't know, keep an eye on things and also kind of
get in there,
his place.
Yeah, to not only try to cement his place, but also to be in a position to foil Mrs. Clay's schemes, if those are indeed her schemes. Which everyone is suspecting this, but I don't know that we've ever seen any real evidence that Mrs. Clay is actually trying to do that. And I don't think
hard to tell based on what we've been told.
Yeah, and given that time when Sir Walter was like talking shit about how Mrs. Smith is nobody, just some random widow, between 30 and 40 who's nobody, and Mrs. Clay like tactfully leaves the room.
Yeah,
just like, I am a widow between 30 and 40 who's nobody.
Yeah.
except I happen to be, have made good friends, whatever. Basically, everything he was accusing Mrs. Smith of, Mrs. Clay is, and he was right there in the room. It makes me think that he cannot, he's pretty dumb. He could be kind of into Mrs. Clay and also not realizing that by insulting this other widow, he was insulting her.
Yeah.
But I think it's a sign that he doesn't even think of her as like a person, really.
Yeah.
She's just sort of.
It is possible.
A companion of his daughter's. And that's about it. But
just because he thinks her complexion is improved that's not really evidence enough to.
Oh yeah, he does say at least one nice thing about her.
Yeah, he says something like her freckles are almost completely gone because she's been using this product I told her about. And Anne was like, no, they're still not at all. But
I think that's
he's
more
trying to tell himself.
He's like, I'm so great. I recommended this product to her, and now she looks amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, that's what's up. But Anne has also assured Mrs. Smith that she has no intention of doing any such thing.
Yes.
All right. And also she wants to tell Lady Russell what's up with Mr. Elliot, but she also recognizes that'll be harder. That Lady Russell will be harder to convince than Anne was.
Yeah.
Okay, chapter 22. Anne went home to think over all that she had heard. In one point, her feelings were relieved by this knowledge of Mr. Elliot. There was no longer anything of tenderness due to him. He stood, as opposed to Captain Wentworth, in all his own unwelcome obtrusiveness, and the evil of his attentions last night, the irredeemable mischief he might have done, was considered with sensations unqualified, unperplexed. Pity for him was all over. But this was the only point of relief. In every other respect, in looking around her or penetrating forward, she saw more to distrust and to apprehend. She was concerned for the disappointment and pain Lady Russell would be feeling, for the mortifications which must be hanging over her father and sister, and had all the distress of foreseeing many evils, without knowing how to avert any one of them. She was most thankful of her own knowledge of him. She had never considered herself as entitled to reward for not slighting an old friend like Mrs. Smith, but here was a reward indeed springing from it. Mrs. Smith had been able to tell her what no one else could have done. Could the knowledge have been extended through her family? But this was a vain idea. She must talk to Lady Russell, tell her, consult with her, and having done her best, wait the event with as much composure as possible. And after all, her greatest want of composure would be in that quarter of the mind which could not be open to Lady Russell, in that flow of anxieties and fears which must be all to herself. Maybe you should keep more of your mind from Lady Russell.
Yeah.
I'm glad you keep some of it, but still, maybe more. Maybe more. Tila said he can have the opposite of tenderness, DBH. Showing the opposite of tenderness. She found, on reaching home, that she had, as she intended, escaped seeing Mr. Elliot, that he had called and paid them a long morning visit, but hardly had she congratulated herself and felt safe till tomorrow, when she heard that he was coming again in the evening. This guy.
Yeah.
I had not the smallest intention of asking him, said Elizabeth with affected carelessness, but he gave so many hints, so Mrs. Clay says at least. Indeed, I do say it. I never saw anybody in my life spell harder for an invitation. Poor man. I was really in pain for him, for your hard-hearted sister, Miss Anne, seems bent on cruelty. Oh, cried Elizabeth, I had been rather too much used to the game to be soon overcome by a gentleman's hints. However, when I found how excessively he was regretting that he should miss my father this morning, I gave way immediately, for I would never really omit an opportunity of bringing him and Sir Walter together. They appeared to so much advantage in company with each other, each behaving so pleasantly, Mr. Elliot looking up with so much respect. Quite delightful, cried Mrs. Clay, not daring, however, to turn her eyes toward Anne. Exactly like father and son. Dear Miss Elliot, may I not say father and son? Oh, I lay no embargo on anybody's words, if you will have such ideas. But upon my word, I am scarcely sensible of his attentions being beyond those of other men. My dear Miss Elliot, exclaimed Mrs. Clay, lifting up her hands and eyes, and sinking all of the rest of her astonishment in a convenient silence. Honestly, I really begin to think that Mrs. Clay is just like, she's broke and she can tolerate Elizabeth.
Yeah.
So she just she's like, hey, I'm in a good spot. I get to be in Bath. My food and lodgings are covered, I assume, with that sort of arrangement, Yeah. She's just like, I'm just going to kind of coast with this rather than her actually being like particularly conniving. I don't know. That's my read on Mrs. Clay. We may learn more.
That's true.
Learn more. Dula says, good Lord. No, you may not. I assume that's in response to, may I not say father and son. Well, my dear Penelope, you need not be so alarmed about him. I did invite him, you know. I sent him away with smiles. When I found he was really going to his friends at Thornbury Park for the whole day tomorrow, I had compassion on him. Anne admired the good acting of the friend in being able to show such pleasure as she did in the expectation and in the actual arrival of the very person whose presence must really be interfering with her prime object. But Anne's still convinced that Mrs. Clay has set her cap at becoming Lady Elliot, as they say, or as they used to say anyway. I don't know if anybody really says set her cap anymore.
Yeah.
It's just not a thing women do so much anymore.
Yeah.
Setting their caps at men. I don't know what the figure speech actually is from, but I like to imagine it like when someone's like squaring themselves up for like a job and they're like settling their cap. That's obviously not what a woman do, but just like, all right, let's do this. I'm gonna marry that dude. All right. It was impossible that Mrs. Clay must hate the sight of Mr. Elliot, and yet she could assume a most obliging, placid look, and appear quite satisfied with the curtailed license of devoting herself only half as much to Sir Walter as she would have done otherwise. To Anne herself, it was most distressing to see Mr. Elliot enter the room, and quite painful to have him approach and speak to her. She had been used before to feel that he could not be always quite sincere, but now she saw insincerity in everything. His attentive deference to her father, contrasted with his former language, was odious, and when she thought of his cruel conduct towards Mrs. Smith, she could hardly bear the sight of his present smiles and mildness, or the sound of his artificial good sentiments. She meant to avoid any such alteration of manners as might provoke a remonstrance on his side. It was a great object with her to escape all enquiry or éclat. I can't remember what that word means. Do you know? It's French, but it's used in English.
Oh,
sometimes.
How is it spelled?
E-C-L-A-T.
Oh,
with the accent aigu. Took me a minute to remember which accent it was.
Éclat?
Yeah. I kind of thought I had at least, if not a specific definition in mind, like a general vibe of what the word meant. But
that's more than me.
This usage doesn't kind of fit with that. So,
two definitions. I think brilliant display or effect is one definition. Another one, which I guess is sort of like a sub-definition, is social distinction or conspicuous success.
Oh, I guess she's using it kind of to mean any like conspicuous attention paid to her.
I guess, yeah.
Maybe. Anyway. But it was her intention to be as decidedly cool to him as might be compatible with their relationship, and to retrace, as quietly as she could, the few steps of unnecessary intimacy she had been gradually led along. She was accordingly more guarded and more cool than she had been the night before. He wanted to animate her curiosity again as to how and where he should have heard her formally praised, wanted very much to be gratified by more solicitation, but the charm was broken. He found that the heat and animation of a public room were necessary to kindle his modest cousin's vanity. He found, at least, that it was not to be done now, by any of those attempts which he could hazard among the two commanding claims of the others. He little surmised that it was a subject acting now exactly against his interest, bringing immediately into her thoughts all those parts of his conduct which were least excusable. She had some satisfaction in finding that he was really going out of Bath the next morning, going early, and that he would be gone the greater part of 2 days. Thank God. Yeah. He was invited again to Camden Place the very evening of his return, but from Thursday to Saturday evening his absence was certain. It was bad enough that a Mrs. Clay should be always before her, but that a deeper hypocrite should be added to their party seemed the destruction of everything like peace and comfort. It was so humiliating to reflect on the constant deception practiced on her father and Elizabeth, to consider the various sources of mortification preparing for them. Mrs. Clay's selfishness was not so complicate nor so revolting as his, and Anne would have compounded for the marriage at once with all its evils to be clear of Mr. Elliot's subtleties in endeavoring to prevent it. On Friday morning, she meant to go very early to Lady Russell and accomplish the necessary communication, and she would have gone directly after breakfast, but that Mrs. Clay was also going out on some obliging purpose of saving her sister trouble, which determined her to wait till she might be safe from such a companion. She saw Mrs. Clay fairly off, therefore, before she began to talk of spending the morning in Rivers Street. "Very well," said Elizabeth. "I have nothing to send but my love. Oh, you may as well take back that tiresome book she would lend me and pretend I have read it through. I really cannot be plaguing myself forever with all the new poems and states of the nation that come out. Lady Russell quite bores one with her new publications. You need not tell her so, but I thought her dress hideous the other night. I used to think she had some taste in dress, but I was ashamed of her at the concert. Something so formal and arrangé in her air. She sits so upright. My best love, of course."
Oh, God.
Continues to be the worst. "Oh, well, yeah, go hang out with her, I guess. How does this affect me?"
Yeah.
"No, I don't know. Oh, yes, you could take back that book and just pretend I read it. Also, apropos of nothing, didn't she look a sight the other night? Anyway, give her my love." Like, what is wrong with you, woman?
Yeah.
You were the worst. You are the actual worst. Honestly, can you think of a character who's actually worse than her from Austen? I'm working only from the ones that I'm super familiar with.
Right.
But even Mrs. Elton is not, she's just annoying and very, wrapped up in herself. She's not nearly, I guess if Mrs. Elton was the daughter of a baronet, maybe she would be.
Possibly.
That bad, but she's just, she has to content herself with imagining herself to be important.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. No one immediately comes to mind. Even the Bingley sisters are not, they have more awareness, I guess.
Yeah.
They I guess they pretty cruel.
And they thought they were being kind to their brother by getting rid of Jane, right? They thought they were doing at least the right thing to their brother, for their brother.
I think so.
They may not being kind to him, but they thought they were doing the right thing. I think Darcy was more convinced of Jane's disinterest, and they were more like, "We don't care what Jane thinks. She's just not good enough for our brother."
Yeah.
But yeah, they at least were trying to, in their mind, help their brother.
I guess, yeah.
I'm just saying that is just the very, very low bar of being slightly better than Elizabeth.
They at least have some idea of appropriate behavior for their station. Like
the nosy.
Yeah.
Like Elizabeth just has no idea what to say or do in any circumstance.
She's just an idiot.
Yeah.
If someone showed up if Mrs. Clay showed up to visit her and was sick and needed a doctor, she would not know what to do.
Yeah.
Like one of the servants Anne.
Yeah, right.
Would have to be like, "You should send for a doctor."
Yeah.
And then put her up here.
Yeah, yeah. They at least always they
know
did the right thing.
Do.
They just did it with this kind of vibe,
Yeah.
and then chucked shit afterwards.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
They're at least smarter.
Yeah.
The Bingley sisters, Mrs. Hurst and Caroline Bingley are at least smarter than Elizabeth Elliot.
Yeah.
All right. "Oh, and mine," added Sir Walter. "Kindest regards, and you may say that I mean to call upon her soon. Make a civil message, but I shall only leave my card. Morning visits are never fair by women at her time of life, who make themselves up so little."
Oh my God.
Oh, brace yourself. "If she would only wear rouge, she would not be afraid of being seen, but last time I called, I observed the blinds were let down immediately."
Maybe she didn't want to look at you, dude.
Yeah. While her father spoke, there was a knock at the door. Who could it be? Anne, remembering the preconcerted visits at all hours of Mr. Elliot, would have expected him, but for his known engagement 7 miles off. After the usual period of suspense, the usual sounds of approach were heard, and Mr. and Mrs. Charles Musgrove were ushered into the room.
Ooh.
Surprise was the strongest emotion raised by their appearance, but Anne was really glad to see them, and the others were not so sorry but that they could put on a decent air of welcome.
Like, oh, I have another daughter.
She was actually quite glad to see them, and the rest were so disappointed that they showed it.
Yeah.
Basically, is what she just said. Oh. And as soon as it became clear that these, their nearest relations, were not arrived with any views of accommodation in that house, Sir Walter and Elizabeth were able to rise in cordiality and do the honors of it very well. I mean, it would be rude for them to show up without any notice.
Yeah.
And then be like, you're going to put us up, right? I mean, I feel like that's rude in any time period.
Yeah.
Although back in the day, they just used to send letters, and the letter could have gone amiss or something.
That is true. True.
They were come to Bath for a few days with Mrs. Musgrove and were at the White Hart. So much was pretty soon understood, but till Sir Walter and Elizabeth were walking Mary into the other drawing-room and regaling themselves with her admiration, Anne could not draw upon Charles's brain for a regular history of their coming, or an explanation of some smiling hints of particular business, which had been ostentatiously dropped by Mary, as well as some apparent confusion as to whom their party consisted of. She then found that it consisted of Mrs. Musgrove, Henrietta, and Captain Harville, besides their two selves. He gave her a very plain, intelligible account of the whole, a narration in which she saw a great deal of most characteristic proceeding. The scheme had received its first impulse by Captain Harville's wanting to come to Bath on business. He had begun to talk of it a week ago, and by way of doing something, as shooting was over, Charles had proposed coming with him, and Mrs. Harville had seemed to like the idea of it very much, as an advantage to her husband. But Mary could not bear to be left, and had made herself so unhappy about it, that for a day or two everything seemed to be in suspense or at an end. But then it had been taken up by his father and mother. His mother had some old friends in Bath whom she wanted to see, and it was thought a good opportunity for Henrietta to come and buy wedding clothes for herself and her sister. And in short, it ended in being his mother's party, that everything might be comfortable and easy to Captain Harville, and he and Mary were included in it by way of general convenience. They had arrived late the night before. Mrs. Harville, her children, and Captain Benwick remained with Mr. Musgrove and Louisa at Uppercross. Oh, Jill's like, is it Wentworth? That would have, it's way too early in the book for something that exciting to happen. Yes. Captain Wentworth making an unannounced call. Sorry, I have an ice pack because I have a headache. It's much better than it was earlier, but the heat is not helping. And having turned the fan off, I brought the ice pack over to the couch because I suspected I might need it.
Does it still feel really hot to you? Does it still feel hot to you?
Yes, I still feel rather warm. But I was wearing too much clothing earlier today. Like, it was one of those weird things where I was kind of out of sorts, and it took me a while to realize, oh, I'm too warm because I'm wearing jeans.
Oh.
Like long, snug jeans.
Yeah.
Dummy. Anyway. And then I sat outside for a while, although it's still quite muggy outside.
Gotcha.
I just wanted to be out of doors for a while, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm drinking cold water, and now I have an ice pack on my head.
That makes sense. I did forget. Anyway.
I was totally fine while the fan was on, but I knew as soon as the fan was off.
I did totally forget to come back out and open the door again. I closed it because there were some very ripe fumes coming from outside.
Yes. Our neighbors like to have a little party on the balcony above ours.
Oh, no, not that. Not those kind
of
fumes. I don't know where they were coming from. Very chemically.
Oh, well, at any rate.
Yes.
Oh, where did Pepper? I don't even know where Pepper went off to. Oh, he's in his box. He's all the way over there now. Yes. Michelle's like, turn on the fan and show us the cat. He's all the way over there. Anyway.
Sorry, Michelle.
And Uppercross. Anne's only surprise was that affairs should be in forwardness enough for Henrietta's wedding clothes to be talked of. She had imagined such difficulties of fortune to exist there as must prevent the marriage from being near at hand. But she learned from Charles that very recently, since Mary's last letter to herself, Charles Hayter had been applied to by a friend to hold a living for a youth who could not possibly claim it under many years, and that, on the strength of his present income, with almost a certainty of something more permanent long before the term in question, The two families had consented to the young people's wishes, and that their marriage was likely to take place in a few months, quite as soon as Louisa's. And a very good living it was, Charles added, only 25 miles from Uppercross, and in a very fine country, a fine part of Dorsetshire. I'm sure that's Dorchester?
Oh.
I'm sure that's one of those that's pronounced totally different from how it looks. In the center of some of the best preserves in the kingdom, surrounded by 3 great proprietors, each more careful and jealous than the other, and to 2 of the 3 at least Charles Hayter might get a special recommendation. Not that he will value it as he ought, he observed. Charles is too cool about sporting. That's the worst of him.
Yes. How dare he not consider the hunting around his new vicarage as the most important thing about that job?
What a fool.
Yes.
I am extremely glad indeed, cried Anne, particularly glad that this should happen, and that of 2 sisters who both deserve equally well, and who have always been such good friends. The pleasant prospects of one should not be dimming those of the other, that they should be so equal in their prosperity and comfort. I hope your father and mother are quite happy with regard to both? Oh, yes, my father would be as well pleased if the gentleman were richer, but he had no fault to find. He had no other fault to find. Money, you know, coming down with money, 2 daughters at once, it cannot be a very agreeable operation, and it straightens him as to many things. However, I do not mean to say they have not a right to it. It is very fit they should have daughters' shares, and I am sure he has always been a very kind, liberal father to me. Mary does not above half like Henrietta's match. She never did, you know. But she does not do him justice, and I nor think enough about Winthrop. I cannot make her attend to the value of the property. It is a very fair match as times go, and I have liked Charles Hayter all my life, and I shall not leave off now. Such excellent parents as Mr. and Mrs. Musgrove, exclaimed Anne, should be happy in their children's marriages. They do everything to confer happiness, I am sure. What a blessing to young people to be in such hands. Your father and mother seem so totally free from all those ambitious feelings which have led to so much misconduct and misery, both in young and old. I hope you think Louisa perfectly recovered now? He answered rather hesitatingly. Yes, I believe I do. Very much recovered, but she is altered. There is no running or jumping about, no laughing or dancing. It is quite different. If one happens only to shut the door a little hard, she starts and wriggles like a young dab chick in the water, and Benwick sits at her elbow reading verses or whispering to her all day long. Anne could not help laughing. That cannot be much to your taste, I know, said she, but I do not believe him. But I do believe him to be an excellent young man. To be sure he is. Nobody doubts it. And I hope you do not think I am so illiberal as to want every man to have the same objects and pleasures as myself. I have a great value for Benwick, and when one can but get him to talk, he has plenty to say. His reading has done him no harm, for he has fought as well as read. I guess if he wants to read some books, that's fine. I mean, at least he's also been a soldier. You know, that's the important thing.
Yeah.
Pepper, where are you? Now he's going off into the kitchen. I'm sorry, maybe he just does not want to be on camera today.
He's cutting us, y'all.
Yeah. All right.
He's deliberately not acknowledging us. How rude.
He is a brave fellow. I got more acquainted with him last Monday than ever I did before. We had a famous set to at rat hunting in the morning in my father's great barns, and he played his part so well that I've liked him better ever since.
Of course.
Oh, Charles. Charles Musgrove is a simple man.
Yes, he is.
Here they were interrupted by the absolute necessity of Charles following the others to admire mirrors and china. But Anne had heard enough to understand the present state of Uppercross and rejoice in its happiness. And though she sighed as she rejoiced, her sigh had none of the ill will of envy in it. She would certainly have risen to their blessings if she could, but she did not want to lessen theirs. Oh, here we have an illustration of apparently the quiet Louisa with Captain Benwick at her elbow, whispering and reading her poems.
Yes.
They made him look a bit silly.
A bit, yeah. It's a very interesting... I don't know how I would have interpreted that drawing without the context.
Yeah, without the context, I would have thought this was like a Mr. Elton, like an unwanted suitor.
Possibly,
and, like giving too much attention to a young lady. Anyway, It's a weird illustration.
Yeah.
I feel like it makes perfect sense, her being kind of quiet and like reserved and a bit high-strung, maybe. Like, she had a very traumatizing experience that was the result of her jumping and being free-spirited.
Yeah.
And also, brain injuries can change your personality. It all kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Brain injury or no. I mean, just going through a traumatic experience like that might make you a little quieter.
Yeah, there's plenty of physical and emotional reasons for her to be different.
Yep.
Also, the guy she's into now is much more serious and into poetry.
Yeah. So sort of encourage that.
Yes.
It sort of dovetailed into it. The effect of the injury on her and her relationship with Captain Benwick are going to dovetail.
Yeah.
Anyway, the visit passed off altogether in high good humor. Mary was in excellent spirits, enjoying the gaiety and the change, and so well satisfied with the journey in her mother-in-law's carriage with 4 horses, and with her own complete independence of Camden Place, that she was exactly in a temper to admire everything as she ought, and enter most readily into all the superiorities of the house, as they were detailed to her. She had no demands on her father or sister, or her consequence was just enough increased by their handsome drawing rooms. Elizabeth was, for a short time, suffering a good deal. She felt that Mrs. Musgrove and all her party ought to be asked to dine with them, but she could not bear to have the difference of style with the reduction of servants, which a dinner must betray, witnessed by those who had been always so inferior to the Elliots at Kellynch. Sorry, I need one more water here. It was a struggle between propriety and vanity, but vanity got the better, and then Elizabeth was happy again. That's her personality. A struggle between propriety and vanity always gets the better.
And then she's happy.
These were her internal persuasions. Old-fashioned notions, country hospitality. We do not profess to give dinners. Few people in Bath do. Lady Alicia never does. Did not even ask her own sister's family, although they were here a month. And I dare say it would be very inconvenient to Mrs. Musgrove, put her quite out of her way. I am sure she would rather not come. She cannot feel easy with us. I will ask them all for an evening. That will be much better. That will be a novelty and a treat. They will have not seen 2 such drawing rooms before. They will be delighted to come tomorrow evening. It shall be a regular party, small but most elegant. Yeah, Tila, the question of how Anne turned out the way she is a really good question with Elizabeth and Mary as sisters.
Yeah.
And
her father.
And her father and Lady Russell.
Yeah.
And Lady Russell is at least composed and proper.
Yeah.
It's a better question, perhaps, is how Lady Russell didn't manage to influence Mary and Elizabeth the way she did Anne.
Yeah.
She has almost complete influence over Anne, or she used to.
Yeah.
But she seems to have none whatsoever for the other 2 sisters.
It does one has to assume that their mother, but considering that their mother and Lady Russell were good friends, it's kind of like...
Yeah, it seems to me implied that their mother was an even better person than Lady Russell in the sense of a proper and warm and caring woman, not a Mrs. Bennet who is,
that seems to
trained her daughters to be idiots.
Had a lasting influence on Anne, but why she didn't on her other 2 daughters,
right? Exactly.
Who knows? And obviously, she was less of a snob than Lady Russell, or Anne is just remarkable and has come to all of this on her own. Yeah.
Tila pointed out Anne was close to her mother, but why weren't the other 2 daughters?
I guess sometimes, sometimes people aren't.
Yeah, but just Elizabeth and Mary
it does make you wonder.
Completely take after their father.
Yeah.
And Anne completely takes after their mother, I guess. Anyway, I'm sure Jane Austen didn't think about it that hard.
Yeah.
And this satisfied Elizabeth, and when the invitation was given to the 2 present and promised for the absent, Mary was as completely satisfied. She was particularly asked to meet Mr. Elliot and be introduced to Lady Dalrymple and Miss Carteret, who were fortunately already engaged to come, and she could not have received a more gratifying attention. Miss Elliot was to have the honor of calling on Mrs. Musgrove in the course of the morning, and Anne walked off with Charles and Mary to go and see her and Henrietta directly. Her plan of sitting with Lady Russell must give way for the present. They all three called in Rivers Street for a couple of minutes, but Anne convinced herself that a day's delay of the intended communication could be of no consequence, and hastened forward to the White Hart to see again the friends and companions of last autumn, with an eagerness of goodwill which many associations contributed to form. They found Mrs. Musgrove and her daughter within, and by themselves, and Anne had the kindest welcome from each. Henrietta was exactly in that state of recently improved views, of fresh-formed happiness, which made her full of regard and interest for everybody she had ever liked before at all, and Mrs. Musgrove's real affection had been won by her usefulness when they were in distress. Mrs. Musgrove's affection related to Anne's usefulness, apparently. It was a heartiness and a warmth and a sincerity which Anne delighted in the more, from the sad want of such blessings at home. She was entreated to give them as much of her time as possible, invited for every day and all day long, or rather claimed as a part of the family, and in return she naturally fell into all her wonted ways of attention and assistance, and on Charles leaving them together, and listening to Mrs. Musgrove's history of Louisa, and to Henrietta's of herself, giving opinions on business and recommendations to shops, with intervals of every help which Mary required, from altering her ribbons to settling her accounts, from finding her keys and assorting her trinkets, to trying to convince her that she was not ill-used by anybody, which Mary, well amused as she generally was in her station at a window overlooking the entrance to the pump room, could not but have her moments of imagining. Oh, Mary. A morning of thorough confusion was to be expected. A large party in a hotel ensured a quick-changing, unsettled scene. 5 minutes brought a note, the next a parcel, and Anne had not been there half an hour when their dining room, spacious as it was, seemed more than half filled. A party of steady old friends were seated round Mrs. Musgrove, and Charles came back with Captains Harville and Wentworth. The appearance of the latter could not be more than the surprise of the moment. It was impossible for her to have forgotten to feel that this arrival of their common friends must be soon bringing them together again. Oh, did you? I didn't think of that at all.
Oh yeah, you know people here too.
Would that entail Wentworth being around? Gosh, I do declare I never
forgot you were in Bath too.
Their last meeting had been most important in opening his feelings. She had derived from it a delightful conviction, but she feared from his looks that the same unfortunate persuasion, a wink, which had hastened him away from the concert room, still governed. He did not seem to want to be near enough for conversation. She tried to be calm and leave things to take their course, and tried to dwell much on this argument of rational dependence. Surely, if there be constant attachment on each side, our hearts must understand each other ere long. We are not boy and girl to be captiously irritable, misled by every moment's inadvertence, and wantonly playing with our own happiness. And yet, a few minutes afterwards, she felt as if their being in company with each other, under their present circumstances, could only be exposing them to inadvertencies and misconstructions of the most mischievous kind. Tila said, "Wenty, no." "Anne," cried Mary, still at her window, "there is Mrs. Clay, I am sure, standing under the colonnade, and a gentleman with her. I saw them turn the corner from Bath Street just now. They seem deep in talk. Who is it? Come and tell me." "Oh, good heavens, I recollect. It is Mr. Elliot himself." "What?" "No," cried Anne quickly. "It cannot be Mr. Elliot, I assure you. He was to leave Bath at 9 this morning and not come back till tomorrow." As she spoke, she felt that Captain Wentworth was looking at her, the consciousness of which vexed and embarrassed her, and made her regret that she had said so much, simple as it was. Mary, resenting that she should be supposed not to know her own cousin, began talking very warmly about the family features, and protesting still more positively that it was Mr. Elliot, calling again upon Anne to come and look herself. But Anne did not mean to stir, and tried to be cool and unconcerned. Her distress returned, however, on perceiving smiles and intelligent glances between 2 or 3 of the lady visitors, as if they believed themselves quite in the secret. It was evident that the report concerning her had spread, and a short pause succeeded which seemed to ensure that it would now spread further. Do come, Anne, cried Mary. Come and look yourself. You will be too late if you do not make haste. They are parting there, shaking hands. He is turning away. Not know Mr. Elliot, indeed. You seem to have forgotten all about Lyme. I saw him a whole once.
Yeah.
Whereas you have been in direct company with him for weeks now. To pacify Mary and perhaps screen her own embarrassment, Anne did move quietly to the window. She was just in time to ascertain that it really was Mr. Elliot, which she had never believed, before he disappeared on one side. And as Mrs. Clay walked quickly off the other, and checked the surprise she could not but feel at such an appearance of friendly conference between two persons of totally opposite interests, she calmly said, Yes, it is Mr. Elliot, certainly. He has changed his hour of going, I suppose, that is all. Or I may be mistaken. I might not attend. And walked back to her chair, recomposed and with a comfortable hope of having acquitted herself well.
You hope that, Anne.
I think we can safely assume that Mr. Elliot and Mrs. Clay are up to something.
Yeah, I seem to recall that, but I don't recall what. This is so weird.
Well, he's got money, remember. What he wants is consequence. He could try to pay her off.
That's true.
Maybe. Although I don't know that any amount of money could be worth her giving up or maybe she's like, I don't think it's actually working. I don't think Sir Walter is actually going to marry me. So I guess I'll forfeit this position for a lump sum of money. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'm sure we'll find out. The visitors took their leave, and Charles, having civilly seen them off, and then made a face at them, and abused them for coming, began with, Well, mother, I have done something for you that you will like. I have been to the theater and secured a box for tomorrow night. Ain't I a good boy? Very weird. Also, it was spelled A''N''T, but I assume that's supposed to be ain't or ant. It's supposed to be the same kind of word.
It's probably a reference to like some folk song or something.
Yeah, it must be. I know you love a play, and there's room for us all. It holds 9. I have engaged Captain Wentworth. Anne will not be sorry to join us, I am sure. We all like a play. Have I not done well, mother? Mrs. Musgrove was good-humoredly beginning to express her perfect readiness for the play, if Henrietta and all the others liked it, when Mary eagerly interrupted her by exclaiming, Good heavens, Charles, how can you think of such a thing? Take a box for tomorrow night? Have you forgotten that we are engaged to Camden Place tomorrow night, and that we were most particularly asked on purpose to meet Lady Dalrymple and her daughter, and Mr. Elliot, all the principal family connections, on purpose to be introduced to them? How can you be so forgetful?
Maybe he was trying to get out of it.
Right? Phoo, replied Charles. What's an evening party? Never worth remembering. Your father might have asked us to dinner, I think, if he had wanted to see us. You may do as you like, but I shall go to the play.
I mean, that is true.
Charles has a point.
Yeah.
Oh, Charles, I declare it will be too abominable if you do, when you promised to go. No, I did not promise. I only smirked and bowed and said the word happy. There was no promise. Okay, sometimes I love Charles.
He's just so open.
But you must go, Charles. It would be unpardonable to fail. We were asked on purpose to be introduced. There was always such a great connection between the Dalrymples and ourselves. Was there?
Yes.
Nothing ever happened on either side that was not announced immediately. You are now just literally saying the opposite of what's true.
Yeah.
We are quite near relations, you know, and Mr. Elliot, too, whom you ought so particularly to be acquainted with. Every attention is due Mr. Elliot. Consider my father's heir, the future representative of the family. Don't talk to me about heirs and representatives, cried Charles. I'm not one of those who neglect the reigning power to bow to the rising sun. If I would not go for the sake of your father, I should think it scandalous for the sake of his heir. What is Mr. Elliot to me? That is a good point. The careless expression was life to Anne, who saw that Captain Wentworth was all attention, looking and listening with his whole soul, and that the last words brought his inquiring eyes from Charles to herself. Charles and Mary still talked on in the same style, he half serious and half jesting, maintaining the scheme for the play, and she, invariably serious, most warmly opposing it, and not omitting to make it known that, however determined to go to Camden Place herself, she could not think herself very well used if they went to the play without her. Mrs. Musgrove interposed. We had better put it off. Charles, you had much better go back and change the box for Tuesday. It would be a pity to be divided, and we should be losing Miss Anne, too, if there is a party at her father's. And I am sure neither Henrietta nor I care at all for the play if Miss Anne could not be with us.
Aww.
Anne felt truly obliged to her for such kindness, and quite as much so, moreover, for the opportunity it gave her of decidedly saying, "If it depended only on my inclination, Mom, the party at home, excepting on Mary's account, would not be the smallest impediment. I have no pleasure in the sort of meeting, and should be too happy to change it for a play, and with you. But it had better not be attempted, perhaps." She had spoken it, but she trembled when it was done, conscious that her words were listened to, and daring not even to try to observe their effect. Oh, we have an illustration of "I only smirked and bowed," which I guess is supposed to be an illustration of Charles, but I do not agree with this. He looks rather old.
Yeah, he does look old.
I feel like this illustrator does not really care to make the illustrations look like he doesn't he's not envisioning characters and keeping them consistent. There's at least 2 illustrations of Sir Walter in here that look completely different from each other.
Yeah.
Like one of them, I was like, I'm pretty sure he thought this was supposed to be Mr. Elliot.
Yeah.
And it's the same illustrator in Emma, the copy of Emma that we have.
Yeah.
And there was definitely at least one illustration. There were 2 illustrations of Mr. Elton that were very decided caricature.
Yeah.
And then there was at least one time that was this is supposed to be an illustration of Frank Churchill or something, but it looked like the drawing of Mr. Elton.
Yeah.
So I do not believe in this illustrator having a real big picture view of the characters in the story.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Probably isn't one person. It's probably just a illustrating agency or something.
They're all signed.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Well, it's just initials, but it always looks the same. Well, I guess not all of them. They all look very similar.
Yeah.
If they're not all done by one person. A number of them are signed, and it's the same. It looks like an HT 97. So
I don't know.
Yeah, they very much all look like the work of the same person anyway. If it's a team, they're purposefully trying to all draw the exact same style.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. It was soon generally agreed that Tuesday should be the day, Charles only reserving the advantage of still teasing his wife by persisting he would go to the play tomorrow if nobody else would. Captain Wentworth left his seat and walked to the fireplace, probably for the sake of walking away from it soon afterwards, and taking a station with less barefaced design by Anne. "You have not been long enough in Bath," said he, "to enjoy the evening parties at the place." "Oh, no, the usual character of them has nothing for me. I am no card player." "You were not formerly, I know. You did not used to like cards, but time makes many changes." "I am not yet so much changed," cried Anne, and stopped, fearing she hardly knew what misconstruction. After waiting a few minutes, he said, as if it were the result of immediate feeling, "It is a period in..." He said, "It is a period, indeed. 8 years and a half is a period." What?
They just mean it's a long time.
I just thought it was a weird turn of phrase, and I was looking to see if someone had used the word period previously, and he was reiterating it, but anyway, weird. Whether he would have proceeded further was left to Anne's imagination to ponder over in a calmer hour, for while still hearing the sounds he had uttered, she was startled to other subjects by Henrietta, eager to make use of the present leisure for getting out, and calling on her companions to lose no time lest somebody else should come in. They were obliged to move. Anne talked of being perfectly ready, and tried to look it, but she felt that could Henrietta have known the regret and reluctance of her heart in quitting that chair, and preparing to quit the room, she would have found, in all her own sensations for her cousin, in the very security of his affection, wherewith to pity her. Their preparations, however, were stopped short. Alarming sounds were heard. Other visitors approached, and the door was thrown open for Sir Walter and Miss Elliot, whose entrance seemed to give a general chill. Now, hold on, I need to see. Okay, we're getting close to the end of the chapter. I was like, this is a long freaking chapter.
Yeah, I was noticing the time too.
Yeah, this is going to be one chapter, and then. Oh, it's actually two. Okay, today's going to be this one good chapter, and then tomorrow's going to be one good chapter and one pretty short chapter, or one good sized chapter and one pretty short chapter. So tomorrow might run a little long, but we're going to end tomorrow for sure. Confirmed.
We shall persevere.
Confirmed. I can't remember what that's from. I was definitely just quoting something now. Confirmed. Confirmed. It's like someone thinks something is true, and someone else says something that seems to confirm it, and then someone just confirmed. I wish I do this all the time. I quote something and then go, I'll be damned if I know what I'm quoting. All right. Sir Walter and Miss Elliot, whose entrance seemed to give a general chill. Mm-hmm. Anne felt an instant depression, and wherever she looked, saw symptoms of the same. The comfort, the freedom, the gaiety of the room was over, hushed into cold composure, determined silence, or insipid talk, to meet the heartless elegance of her father and sister. How mortifying to feel that it was so. Her jealous eye was satisfied in one particular. Captain Wentworth was acknowledged again by each, by Elizabeth more graciously than before. She even addressed him once and looked at him more than once. Elizabeth was, in fact, revolving a great measure. The sequel explained it. After the waste of a few minutes in saying the proper nothings, she began to give the invitation which was to comprise all the remaining dues to the Musgroves. Tomorrow evening, to meet a few friends, no formal party. It was all said very gracefully, and the cards with which she had provided herself, the Miss Elliot at home, were laid on the table, with a courteous, comprehensive smile to all, and one smile and one card, more decidedly, for Captain Wentworth.
What?
Yeah, that seems like, I mean, I think she could hardly avoid also inviting him if they came in all that state to invite the party and he was there.
Yeah.
It would have been very rude for them not to invite him, but still, giving him a card and everything.
Yeah.
I would expect more of a Miss Bennet-esque, and your friend may come too, if he will.
I suppose.
The truth was that Elizabeth had been long enough in Bath to understand the importance of a man of such an air and appearance as his. The past was nothing. The present was that Captain Wentworth would move about well in her drawing-room. The card was pointedly given, and Sir Walter and Elizabeth arose and disappeared. Wow. That actually makes sense, right? Like, she wouldn't care who about the past. He just, I don't know. It relates to Anne, so who cares?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
She wouldn't hold a grudge because she just wouldn't even think about it as like something worth continuing to think about.
She would have known.
She knew. It's Mary doesn't know because Mary was at school at the time or something. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure she knew.
That's right. Because he would have had to ask her father. And
yes, it's explicitly stated that.
Yeah.
Sir Walter
he gave his consent. All those sort of like.
Yeah, he doesn't. It says something like he didn't forbid it, but he was so discouraging that it seemed like
I guess
he's like, oh, if you must,
if you really want to.
Oh, where? The interruption had been short, though severe, and ease and animation returned to most of those they left as the door shut them out, but not to Anne. She could think only of the invitation she had, with such astonishment, witnessed, and of the manner in which it had been received, a manner of doubtful meaning, of surprise rather than gratification, of polite acknowledgement rather than acceptance. She knew him. She saw disdain in his eye, and could not venture to believe that he had determined to accept such an offering as atonement for all the insolence of the past. Her spirit sank. He held the card in his hand after they were gone, as if deeply considering it. Only think of Elizabeth's, including everybody, whispered Mary very audibly. I do not wonder Captain Wentworth is delighted. You see, he cannot put the card out of his hand. Yeah, he's
oh, Mary.
He's definitely delighted.
Yes.
Delight is definitely the word, Mary. You really hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Anne caught his eye, saw his cheeks glow, and his mouth form itself into a momentary expression of contempt, and turned away that she might neither see nor hear more to vex her. Yeah, too, Lord, nobody likes them, LMAO.
Yeah.
True. Nobody likes them. Who could?
Yeah.
Who could? Lady Dalrymple.
Yeah.
Because they make her feel important or whatever.
Although, doesn't it say that she only appreciates them because they're willing to come over on like rainy nights or something like that?
She's like, oh, she enjoys them because they're always willing to come over. Yeah. They're always available for her. Yeah. And they give her attention. Yeah. It's that. They do it make it clear that it's not out of any real enjoyment of them or affection or anything. It's just because they will pay attention to her. Yeah. And they're willing to go through, jump through hoops to do so. The party separated. The gentlemen had their own pursuits, the ladies proceeded on their own business, and they met no more while Anne belonged to them. She was earnestly begged to return and dine, and give them all the rest of the day, but her spirits had been so long exerted that at present she felt unequal to move, and fit only for home. And fit only for home, where she might be sure of being as silent as she chose.
I feel you, Anne.
That's very... But like at her home...
Well, yeah, but like I'm sure she has her own room.
Right, yeah, but it's like I feel like that's a very heavy, that's a weighted sentence, because it's not just I just need to go home so I can go in my room and be quiet. She could be sure of being as silent as she chose, because no one ever asks her to speak when she's at home. That's no true. One ever requires anything of her, or any attention or conversation.
Yeah, that's true.
Promising to be with them the whole of the following morning, therefore, she closed the fatigues of the present by a toilsome walk to Camden Place, there to spend the evening chiefly in listening to the busy arrangements of Elizabeth and Mrs. Clay for tomorrow's party, the frequent enumeration of the persons invited, and the continually improving detail of all the embellishments which were to make it the most completely elegant of its kind in Bath, while harassing herself in secret with the never-ending question of whether Captain Wentworth would come or not. They were reckoning him as certain, but with her, it was a gnawing solicitude never appeased for 5 minutes altogether. She generally thought he would come, because she generally thought he ought, but it was a case which she could not so shape into any positive act of duty or discretion, as inevitably to defy the suggestions of very opposite feelings. She only roused herself from the broodings of this restless agitation to let Mrs. Clay know that she had been seen with Mr. Elliot 3 hours after his being supposed to be out of Bath, for having watched in vain for some intimation of the interview from the lady herself, she determined to mention it, and it seemed to her that there was guilt in Mrs. Clay's face as she listened. It was transient, cleared away in an instant, but Anne could imagine she read there the consciousness of having, by some complication of mutual trick, or some overbearing authority of his, been obliged to attend, perhaps for half an hour, to his lectures and restrictions on her designs on Sir Walter. She exclaimed, however, with a very tolerable imitation of nature, "Oh, dear, very true. Only think, Miss Elliot, to my great surprise, I met with Mr. Elliot in Bath Street. I was never more astonished. He turned back and walked with me to the pump yard. He had been prevented setting off for Thornbury, but I forget by what, for I was in a hurry and could not much attend, and I can only answer for his being determined not to be delayed in his return. He wanted to know how early he might be admitted tomorrow. He was full of tomorrow, and it is very evident that I have been full of it too ever since I entered the house, and learned the extension of your plan, and all that happened, or my seeing him, could never have gone so entirely out of my head." Anyway, that is the end of the chapter.
Yes.
Oh, gotcha.
Interesting
Indeed. I mean, like, Anne's theory is certainly plausible, right? That Mr. Elliot, except for the shaking hands part.
Yeah.
That Mr.
The shaking, they seemed fairly friendly.
Yeah, the shaking hands part seems very telling. There's something afoot.
Something's afoot.
We will find out tomorrow. Anyway, I'm just... Oh no, Tila, I'm so sorry. Tila might have to miss tomorrow. That is so sad. I mean, obviously you'll be able to listen to it afterwards, but I'm sad that you won't be able to join us. Although family D&D is obviously very important. So, but I'm sad that you will not be with us to make hilarious commentary on all of the events of tomorrow. I imagine it will be quite exciting. Yeah. I'm just really eager for it to I just want everything to be resolved. Just do it. Just resolve everything. So I'm very excited for tomorrow. Unlike, I feel like with Emma, like, we get the resolution. Oh, and with Pride and Prejudice, we kind of get the resolution pretty early, and then there's like quite a lot of just like wrapping up.
Prejudice, there was a lot of wrapping up.
Yeah, but this seems like, I don't know, unless Captain Wentworth proposes to her like the first page of the next chapter.
Yeah,
there's going to be it's going to be quite close to the end.
Edge of your seat.
Spoiler alert, but I think we all know that's what's coming.
Yeah,
obvious. We all know Jane Austen's game.
Well, plus with Emma, the last bits of it were sort of ruined by Emma still being a garbage person. So
yeah, this is true.
By the time everything was wrapping up, we were kind of like over her.
Yeah. But and it's different with Pride and Prejudice, where everything is just like kind of.
Pride and Prejudice is sort of it's interesting because there are two proposals and weddings that are being prepared for.
Yeah,
and also they have first they don't want to steal Jane and Bingley's thunder, but more than that, Elizabeth wants to break it to her family.
Yeah,
in like the most plausible way.
They both realize that like this is gonna be awkward.
Yeah, because nobody's gonna are going to believe her.
Yeah, this is gonna be a little weird.
The only person who has any clue about their current relationship is her Aunt Gardner, who is not there.
Well, Jane knows about she at least knows about Mr. Darcy having proposed once before. The rest of the family doesn't even know that much.
Yeah, but she didn't. Mrs. Gardner saw them at Pembroke together. Yeah, she's the one who is there's I'm sure when you're mistress of Pemberley, you will allow me. You will invite me for long carriage rides around your excellent grounds or something like that.
But there's a point where Mr. Darcy does something. Oh, it's Elizabeth is worried about Mr. Darcy knowing about Lydia's disgrace, and Jane's like, so, like, who cares if he knows or something like that? Or not who cares, but no, she doesn't say so. But it's Elizabeth is like, well, he will not be paying his addresses to me, and she's like, surely you don't want him to? Wait, do you think he's still in love with you? And she's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So like Jane has some hint that there's something going on, but
that's true. But she still doesn't believe it.
We're right. I'm just saying she has a much greater hint than the rest of the family.
Well, that
anywho, this one it seems like is going to come to a head much closer to the ending, but it's also a shorter book, I think. Well, maybe not than Pride and Prejudice. I'm not sure.
I think it is shorter. It's fairly short as the books go.
Anyway. I'm going to go take my temperature. I hope I don't have a fever.
Ooh.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Hopefully I will see you guys tomorrow. So, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Tila, enjoy your family D&D. Oh no, Michelle is also worried that she won't be done with work in time.
Oh no.
Well, what will I do if I turn on the stream and nobody's here? Anyway.
Well, I suppose we could always do it later if Tila won't be able to make it.
That's true.
Wait, Teal's on the East Coast, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to make it too late, though.
Right. No. But I mean...
Anyway, I won't start early. I'll put it that way. Anyway.
Never fear. We shall not start early.
All right. Well, anyway, I'm going to go take my temperature to make sure I don't actually have a fever because I'm quite warm.
Yeah.
And then... maybe take a cold shower as well because it is muggy out today.
It is.
That is true. According to my phone, it is 75 degrees.
It looks like rain.
All right.
Fear we may be about to get a little down.
Oh, apparently the family D&D starts at exactly the same time, so there's nothing for it. Oh, well, I will see you guys tomorrow or later, whatever. At any rate, I'm definitely going to take a break after this book, at least for probably like 2 weeks, during which I will decide what I'm going to do next. Because I'm not done with this project overall. I'm just going to take a little bit of a break. I don't know how long yet. Because I'm going to go on a little excursion with a friend to a friend's house who is currently quarantining and is going to get tested so that we can hang out. And we haven't decided exactly how long I'm going to stay yet. So that will affect when I come back. So anyway, I will post about it on Twitter and stuff, though. So, yeah. Anyway, good night. Hopefully, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye. Bye.